Hello, Driven Millennial family. Welcome back. I'm so excited to show this episode of fast and easy tips for peak performance without the burnout with Miss Alyssa Rocco. She is a life coach at Handle Group. Hi there.
Hi.
I'm so excited that you're on because we're just going to be able to share with people a little bit about how to integrate all the things we've learned so far and make it super duper easy and super duper simple to say, what can we do every single day and how do we build that habit? So tell me a little bit about your story, how you started and your journey with not only just living a life of peak performance, but then also, how Handle Group's changed the world so far.
Oh my gosh, so cool. So I came to Handle Group over 8 years ago, and I was really looking for self-help programs because I had reached a point in my life where I was successful in, my job, corporate America. I looked fit and happy, but I was really feeling stuck and sort of like everything looked good on paper, but I didn't feel that way inside and I couldn't figure out why. And so it was a serendipitous that I did 1 hour with a coach and my eyes were open to the fact that I was really lying about a lot of things in my life. And one of the areas that I was really lying about was my relationship to my body. And so I was, I was raised really, in a very controlling relationship with my body. I was obsessed with my weight, what I ate. I had a history of bulimia. And so I really had gotten to a point where on paper, everything looked fine, like I said. But inside, I was constantly in this extreme, relationship where I had to eat very rigidly all week. And then I drink all weekend and I would go to the opposite extreme on the weekends. And it was just and I was not being honest about that. So when I got to Handel, I really had to confront the fact that if I wanted a different relationship with my body, I had to be honest first and foremost about what I was doing. And then I had to really take the steps to change it. And so I started to make promises to myself. And promises is one of the tools that I learned in the Handel method of really how to align my actions, what I'm physically doing, with my dream of what I really want. And so I started to make promises about exercise and not so, I am the kind of girl who would over exercise. I'd exercise 2 times a Bikram every day. Right. Yeah. So I had to be okay, no.
Driven.
That is not healthy.
You welcome. Yeah, totally.
Not healthy. So I had to really not so much exercise, making sure that I was eating the right food. And I was, because I would eat a lot of sugar, but it looked fine because I was thin, but I was obsessed with what I how much sugar I could eat, how much I was all about control. Yeah. And I really had to put in place the right practices with my food and with my eating. And so I made promises about that. And then I really was working with a coach for a long time and then discovered yet another layer that I was addicted to alcohol and I was lying about that. And it was in a very controlled way that I drank. And so I really wasn't I'm an alcoholic, but that was something that I had to really deal deeply with. So I went to recovery, dealt with it through the 12 steps. But throughout this whole process, what I've always come back to is what is my relationship that I want to have with my body and what are the practices I need to put in place that really align with that. So for me, what I've come to realize now through some tools, which I can lay out for you, is consistent practices with exercise, with eating, and then for my emotional and spiritual health with prayer and meditation and recovery, all of those things is the right program for me, the right ingredients that keep me really grounded and happy with my body and with then other areas of my life.
Yeah. And that's such a powerful story. Those moments in life where we overcome or have that realization that we even have something to overcome. Because I think we've, like I know that I've been there in the sense of, and that's a little bit of what I've said in like the promotion of this, is like I was living in this yo-yo state of like, let me do Monday through Friday perfectly and then wake up blurry and broke Friday through Saturday. And it's like, did I like take out all the work I did over the week health wise? And I'm talking body wise, and I'm talking just goals wise. And it's like, honestly, like I could have saved some money not waking up blurry and not waking up broke. And, I'm sure Alyssa and I, like, we're not saying don't go out and have fun, right? Like that's not it, but the mindset around it. And I think that we, at least for me, like coming right out of college, and like that was kind of the default setting because you had that flexibility and it was the first time that you were really your own person and your own adult and you could make those own decisions. And if you don't dive into it, like I didn't dive into those mindset hacks at 19. You're just kind of like, oh, this is awesome, and I'm gonna just like push through, and I want to do it all, and you should. There's that component. But now then you're on the other side, and you have powerful experiences like yours, you can kind of check in. And so I think that that's what I want to share with the audience, is that ability to check in is going to give you so much more in your performance state. And you're going to be able to show up into those big meetings or those challenging, like if you wanted to start doing triathlons or any of those things, like you get to show up as the best version of yourself because you've transformed in that sense. And I think that's so cool. And so tell me a little bit about how you've integrated, all these different components, how you know to take care of your body, because it's not like super difficult, right?
Well, it's sort of, we have a joke at Handel Group that there are hundreds of diets out there, right? Like we are really culturally understand like what to eat, but actually doing that, eating the right food and staying on the diet is a whole different story. We're not consistent. So the consistency and really building a habit is something that I had to really practice. And so what the Handel Group teaches is the way to practice what we call personal integrity, which is the alignment of what we're doing, our bodies are doing with our dreams, right? So it's that alignment between having a plan and then physically following through in a way that makes us happy and proud of ourselves. And the quickest way to do that is by making and keeping a promise to yourself. So one of the promises that I made when I really started to change my eating habits was a promise to eat a certain amount of protein and vegetables every single day. And so I made that promise, 14 ounces, like 14 ounces, that's my rule. And then I have a consequence. So there's consequences to everything that we do, right? When I was, starving myself all week so that I could party all weekend, there was a consequence to that. I woke up on Monday morning feeling like an emotional hangover as well as a physical one. So the consequences were not ones that I wanted. So in the Handel method, we make a promise that aligns with our dream, like I eat 14 ounces of protein, and then a consequence if I don't keep that also is just an incentive to keep the promise. So if I don't, I have to eat extra on the following day. So it's like that type of a rule is a healthy rule that it creates the balance that I said I wanted when I was starving myself all week so I could party on the weekend. That didn't translate. Like what balance meant for me is I eat 14 ounces a day, and if I don't, I have to eat more the next day. That's real balance in practice. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I like how you mentioned it's not so like, oh, you get consequences for your actions. Like in the sense that you're mind kind of like mind fucking yourself, and like you're making it you're worried about the consequence. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that unintended consequences are happening no matter what. And so if they're happening no matter what, then like, why not be strategic and say like, okay, well, I can deal with that consequence. Like, oh man, like I can only get through like a roll of sushi. I guess I have to eat 2 rolls of sushi tomorrow. Like,
right.
Like those are like those.
Right.
That's a really bad example, but you know what I mean.
Well, for me, someone who my mind is always trying to eat less. Like for somebody who their mind always wants to eat more, it's a different type of balance that needs to get created through their habit. Right? So like if I relied just on my mind, it would have me go, okay, starve yourself all week and then go party on the weekend. Like it naturally, it's like, doesn't come up with the right rules that align with my dream of being healthy. So then I go, okay, what's the right rule that will keep me really happy and healthy in my body? And then I'm like, okay, well, I have to eat a certain amount. And if I don't, then in order to not deal with the natural consequences of feeling crappy, I'm going to eat more the following day. And that rule keeps me living in a state of balance versus just talking about wanting balance.
Yeah. And the dream life. I think the dream life component that you mentioned is huge because now you can pull away and say like, oh, hey, brain, like you're conditioned that way and I'm going to change your conditioning, brain. But this is why, like, we get to go to Disneyland if we change this. Like you're having those kind of talks with yourself, and that's so empowering because it makes you, and because I've done it, like I've like running half marathons, like I swear like, to have to like learn how to run like 20 miles a week, like it's a whole different headspace. But it's like, what is my end result? Like the fact that, and it's really silly, but my whole story with that was like, I just feel like the world's in a really interesting place right now. And if I need to run for 13 miles to get away from zombies or like whatever, like I want to know that I can do that. And it was a little silly, but it totally motivated me because I realized like my world, like I knew I had that capacity to do more. And so I think that's really just remembering that the dream life component of, you know, when you're putting those habits, you know, do people put them in their calendar or how to?
Yeah. So I want to just like say that's like a really good point. Like that desire to be healthy because you knew it would help you be better in the world. Like that was similar to my dream. It's like, I know that like, I have a dream of like just being a better human being in the world. And so like, at first I had that incentive. And then I made the promise, okay, what are the right actions I need to take that align with that dream? And one of them was around eating healthy. Another one for me is a practice of morning meditation. So then that goes, for me, it does go in my calendar because I have everything in my calendar. And it's great because then if it's in my calendar that I meditate equal to this appointment or meeting with my boss, it's allocated in time. So then I'm keeping that promise for meditation. If I don't meditate, then I don't get my coffee. And that was like the best way for me to learn how to meditate because I love my morning coffee. So like the minute I was like, oh crap, I need my meditation before I get my coffee, it forced that new habit. And at first my mind didn't want to. It was like, I don't need to, blah, blah, blah. But I knew I had that consequence. So I did the meditation, then I had the coffee. And then it's a new habit, 3 weeks. It doesn't even take that long.
Yeah.
To change your habit. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And it's interesting that Fast and Easy Tips for Peak Performance Without Burnout is only 21 days long.
I didn't even know that. See, you guys are already onto that.
Yeah. No, and it's perfect. And that's what's great is, I mean, if you took away all 21, I feel like I'll take you to lunch no matter where you are in the world. And that goes to my audience. Like if you get it integrated and dialed in, like it's huge because it's, you know, these stories, you guys are so powerful and you get it. And then you also know that you've kind of like flown into like that 3,000 foot level and looked at the big picture. Because ultimately, you know, like in the next 5 years, like I want to be in baby making mode. So what does my body need to do to get there? Or, you know, I want to be at 6 figures, you know, what does it take for me to get there? Like those big things you need to like check in with yourself, and you get to have fun with it because you have that like the way you talk about like how you get balance and that structure of it, like it's fun for you. You're not like beating yourself over the head, like, you know, and that's powerful.
Well, you know, I mean, it was so weird. So like if I had to describe my life before where there were no rules, it was just like, you know, I did feel bad when I would like, you know, go from starving myself all week to drinking everything over the weekend. And then emotionally, I felt bad about that. Like I'd beat myself up, but nothing would ever change. It didn't actually force a different action. So when I came to Handel and I learned this promise and consequence game of practicing personal integrity and just getting better at learning how to keep my word to myself versus failing, feeling bad, failing, feeling bad, and having that feeling bad be a diversion, but that never actually did anything, translated to change. It was just so much more effective and so much less emotionally hard.
Yeah. It's freeing. It's kind of there. It's freeing in that. Yeah. That's awesome. So people might be trying these habits and they might have, they're going to take something away from our conversation today. And I just want to say that, like, no matter what habit you're working on, that's for your health, for your wellness, whether it's financially, relationshiply, in life, in nature, it's not always a perfect slate. And we want to support anybody who's starting new health habits with some tools so that you feel really good about it, even in those times where you're like, oh my gosh, this is like a ton. Because you're changing your whole landscape in your head, and you have to be in the same situations you were in before, but in a new kind of light and a new integrity with yourself. So what are some tools that the audience can take into when they do feel that kind of like overwhelm with what, their new self they're trying to create?
Yeah. I mean, I really think the tool that changed my life is keeping a promise. And to actually put this into play, it requires 3 ingredients. So the first is making and keeping a promise that's measurable and specific. That one promise that was like, okay, for the next 30 days, I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes. The consequence of no coffee till I meditate, right? That really enforced, like I want my coffee, I'm going to meditate. And then telling somebody. Those 3 pieces can really change any behavior because there's a promise that's specific and measurable. There's an incentive to keep the promise, and you're not just in your own mind, you're telling somebody else, which puts in place accountability.
Awesome. I love that. Those three simple tools, definitely write them down. It's powerful. And then you kind of have this like brain dump activity that you do.
Yeah. I know. I have so many tools.
I know. So show us that one too. Because I think because I didn't realize, well, I did, but we call it different things between like you and I. And when we were talking about it, I was like, I've done that since I was 12. I don't know if my mom just like gave me the journal or whatever, but and it's helped me a lot, and it's just helped me manifest and be really dialed in with myself. So tell us about what HG does with it.
Yeah, so this is we call it the Purge tool. And there's 2 parts. So what you just described is part 1, where if you're in a bad mood is a good indicator that something is off in your inner dialogue, the way you're talking to yourself. So if your mood is off, the first thing to do is take a piece of paper and write down everything you're saying to yourself in your head. Spew it all out. Doesn't matter if you contradict yourself, are dumb, stupid, whatever. Just write it all out. Second part of the Purge tool is to actually then separate yourself, like take a breather, and then go back and read the contents of what you just wrote from the perspective of your higher self, like the voice that really knows the truth, is fighting for your happiness, and then really looks at that like, okay, what do I need to do? Did I step over meditating this morning? Did I miss my emotional hygiene? Like what's happening? And then from that, take an action. And that tool is also super useful to just get me unstuck in those moments where I feel like I'm off what's wrong.
I love that. And what is like a reasonable action? Like what are like a couple examples if people were to do that?
Sure. So sometimes I'm like, I'm upset about something. Like I got hurt. Somebody said something to me and I got hurt. So then having a conversation to really clear the air with that person. Sometimes it's because I I know that there are key ingredients that make me emotionally happy in a day, like prayer and meditation and going to a meeting because I'm in recovery. So if I didn't do one of those things, I'm going to be off. So sometimes one of the actions is to call somebody or to get to a meeting or to stop and meditate.
I love it. Yeah. And those are great kind of tools. And that can go to food or like, like there's a lot of people who are like, let's just get more water in your day, and then like, you're like, oh my gosh, it's 2 o'clock and you're not even, 24 ounces deep or whatever. And it feels, you're like, wow, I'm just like super run down or I'm all of this. And it's like, chug some water, see what happens,
Exactly. So that's such a good example. And for me, I think I drink a lot of water naturally, but like that could easily come up. But the one that comes up a lot for me is sleep. Like I'll be like cranky in my mind and judgy. And then I'm like, what is up? And I'm like, oh, I'm tired. I need a nap.
Yeah, it's so true. I'm the worst napper. You can talk. My boyfriend, he's like, you need to nap. And I'm like, I don't I just can't, because I think that I'm still working in my head. So, but that's a balance. And I'm like, I'll be authentic with the audience, with you. Like that is one of my things that I'm working on. Like, it's that like, because when you give yourself that amount of self-care or you turn off the firing in your brain,
yeah,
and really check in with like going back to spirit, going back to the natural state, your body can go in and attack any and everything that's on your screen, right? Because we live in a world of screens. You can do it so much better when you're at your best performance. I totally agree.
Completely. And that moment of checking in with yourself and how you're really feeling gives you the solution. It gives you the right action to take.
Yeah. So trust that voice that's going on in your head and just really feel that structure be a good thing. The habit building and the accountability part of it and the consequence part of it. It doesn't come out of because I feel like a lot of people might be like, well, it's like I'm going back to like when my mom used to yell at me about sewing this and doing this and doing this. But it's like, this is a personal balance. Like these are the personal relationships and those personal agreements you're having with yourself. So they can be light, they can be fun. Your mind the best, and being able to evolve that in a really strategic way is so powerful. So Alyssa, thank you for those two tools. And then the promises one I want to put out there and just feel really good about because that's Alyssa's favorite and it works. I mean, you've transformed so much, right?
It's true. The promise, and keeping a promise that's specific is the way that I get to be true to myself, moment to moment.
Yeah, that's so great. So where can we find you online? And I hear you have a little goodie for our audience as well.
I do. So first of all, you can check out the Handel Group at handelgroup.com. And we have launched back in April an online digital self-study program that literally has this entire methodology online in a self-study way. And it's literally everything that you need to go through our process, including group coaching calls. There's actually going to be a master class where a head coach takes you through the process starting in August. So for everybody who's listening, you all get $75 off using the coupon code that we're going to give you in the show notes. But it's like, it's our best stories. It's all the workbook, all promises, like keeping promises. This is a place that has all your accountability and your integrity. And there's even a buddy system. So we'll hook you up with somebody that's also doing the work so you don't have to do it alone. It's like so much bang for your buck. So $75 off for you all.
Yeah, thank you, Alyssa. That's awesome. And you guys do such great work over there. Where do you have Instagram and like, can we follow you there too? Like you personally?
Absolutely. It's Alyssa at HG. I think it's HG Coach. So you'll also put that in the notes.
Yeah. Cool.
But it's my name and then HG Coach.
Good to know. Well, I just really appreciate you coming on and sharing these really practical strategies that you've integrated into your life. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your powerful story. And it's just been a pleasure to get to know you a little bit better. And I hope our audience resonates and you go get some stuff done, y'all.
Thank you. Come visit me when you come to New York.
I will. Yes, definitely so. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.